Hello students, welcome to the first lecture on Dharmashastra in Indian political thought. In this lecture, we are going to begin with a very basic question. What is Dharmashastra? Many students have heard the word Dharma and many people translate Dharma simply as a religion. But this translation is not sufficient for understanding ancient Indian political thought. In this series, we will understand Dharma in its historical and textual context. We will first understand the meaning of Dharma, then we will see what Dharmashastra literature is, how this literature developed, which important texts are associated with it, and why Dharmashastra is important for the study of political thought. We will also be careful about one important point. Dharmashastra texts are normative texts. In simple words, they often discuss how people, rulers, and different social groups ought to behave. We should therefore not automatically assume that everything written in these texts was followed exactly in actual society. This distinction will remain important throughout our study. Let us begin with the most important word, dharma. For a beginner, the easiest mistake is to translate dharma as simply religion. Dharma can certainly have religious meanings in some context, but in the ancient Indian intellectual tradition, the word had a much wider range of meanings. Depending on the context, dharma could refer to proper conduct, duty, established norms, moral responsibility, social obligations, and the principles that support an ordered way of life. So, if we say that a person has a particular dharma, we may be talking about the duties and conduct expected from that person. The meaning of dharma also changed and developed over time. Scholars have therefore studied the semantic history of the word rather than treating its meaning as fixed from the beginning. Dharma is broader than religion. It is better understood as a normative idea about how life, conduct, and social order should be maintained, although its exact meaning depends on the text and context. Now we come to Dharmashastra, or more accurately, Dharmshastra. This word can be understood broadly as a shastra or systematic textual treatment dealing with dharma, but we should not imagine Dharmashastra as one single book. It refers to a large textual tradition that developed over a long period. These texts discuss many subjects. They include rules of conduct, duties, social relation, ritual matters, family life, inheritance, legal procedure, punishment, and also questions related to kingship and governance. This is why Dharmashastra is important for political science. It gives us idea about the relationship between social order, duty, law like norms, and political authority. But there is an important academic caution. We should not simply call Dharmshastra the law of ancient India and stop there. The tradition is much more complex. It contains normative rules and discussions about dharma, while actual legal and social practices could involve other authorities and customs as well. Modern scholars therefore study Dharmashastra as a textual and legal tradition rather than treating it as a single ancient legal code. Cambridge's Hinduism and Law, including Patrick chapter on Dharmashastra, treats it as a historical textual tradition. Now we need to understand how this literature developed. Students often use Dharmasutra and Dharmashastra as if they are exactly the same thing. They are related, but we should distinguish between them. The Dharmasutra are among the earliest surviving texts of this textual tradition. Patrick identifies four important surviving Dharmasutra associated with number one, Apastamba, number two, Gautama, number three, Bodhyana, number four, Vasistha. The Cambridge chronology places these texts broadly in the following periods, like number one, Apastamba around 3rd century BCE. Number two, Gautama around the early 2nd century BCE. Number 3, Bodhayana, around the mid to late 2nd century BCE. And number 4, Vasistha, around 1st century BCE. These are just approximate scholarly datings, not the exact year. Keep in mind, rather than traditional development into more extensive Dharmshastra or Smriti text, often written in verses. So important point is Dharmasutra is an earlier textual form, while later Dharmshastra literature developed into a broader and more elaborate. Let us now remember some important names and dates. The four major early Dharmasutra are associated with Pastamba, Gautama, Bodhayana, Vasistha. Later we find important Smriti and Dharmshastra text. The Manava Dharmashastra, commonly known as Manusmriti, is placed by the Cambridge chronology around the 2nd century CE. The Vajnavalkya Smriti is placed around 4th to 5th century CE, while the Narada and Brahaspati Smriti are placed around the 5th to 6th centuries CE. Notice that I am using approximate periods. This is very important for UGC NET JRF examination preparation. Do not memorize an exact year for a text when scholars themselves debate its dating. Another important point is that Manusmriti should not be treated as if it is represents the entire Dharmashastra tradition. It is one very important text within a much larger tradition. Modern scholarship also shows that the composition around transmission of the Manav Dharmashastra were complex, involving questions of composition, editing, and textual transmission. Now you may ask, if Dharmashastra is mainly about dharma, why are we studying it in political science? The answer is that Dharmashastra discusses many questions that are directly connected with political life. For example, who should rule? What are the duties of a king? How should dispute be settled? How should punishment be used? How should social order be maintained? What responsibility does the ruler have? These are political questions. Therefore, Dharmashastra helps us understanding an important feature of ancient Indian political thought. Political authority was discussed within a wider normative framework of dharma. This is different from simply imagining politics as a struggle for power. The ruler was not discussed only as someone who possessed power. His role was also connected with duties, protection, justice, and maintenance of order. We will study these ideas in detail in the next lecture, which will be the part 2 of this lecture. For now, remember the basic connection. Dharma provides a normative framework and political authority operates within discussion of order, duty, and justice. The overlap between Dharmashastra and political or governance literature is also recognized in modern scholarship. Another major area of Dharmashastra is social order. The text discusses different kinds of duties and social responsibility. One important framework is the discussion of Varna, which classifies society into four broader categories in Brahmical normative tradition. Another is ashrama, referring to a stage of life. Dharmashastra literature also discuss marriage, family relation, inheritance, rituals, duties, conduct, food practices, and many other areas of social life. But we need to be academically careful. These texts are normative texts. They tell us about ideals, rules, and prescriptions found in a particular intellectual tradition. They should not automatically be treated as a complete description of how every person in ancient India actually lived. This distinction is particularly important when we study caste, gender, and social hierarchy. A text may prescribe a particular social arrangement, but that does not by itself prove that the arrangement was followed uniformly in every region and period. For our study of political thought, the key point is that dharma was connected with the maintenance of an ordered society, and political authority was also discussed in relation to that order. Now we come closer to political theory. Dharmashastra literature discusses the king or ruler as an important figure in maintaining social and political order. But we should not understand the king simply as a person who can do whatever he wants. The king has duties. The idea that the ruler as duty is closely connected with what is often called Raj Dharma, the dharma or duties associated with kingship. The ruler is expected to protect the people, maintain order, and administer justice according to the normative framework recognized by tradition. This gives us an important idea. Kingship is connected with responsibility. However, we should not immediately translate this into modern terms such as constitutional monarchy or rule of law. Those are modern political concepts and need separate explanation. The better approach is to ask what duties and norms were text such as Dharmshastra prescribing for rulers. This question allows us to understand the political thought in its own historical context. We will examine Rajdharma, kingship, and the duties of the ruler much more closely. This is one of the most important methodological points in the entire topic. Dharmashastra texts are largely normative. What does normative mean? It means they often tell us what should be done. For example, a text may say that a king should behave in a particular way. That tells us about the ideal or prescribed conduct of the ruler. But it does not automatically prove that every ruler actually behave in that way. Similarly, if a text gives rules about family, caste, women, punishment, or property, we should not immediately conclude that every person in every part of India followed those rules. Therefore, when studying Dharmashastra, always ask two questions. First, what does the text prescribe? Second, what evidence do we have about actual historical practices? This distinction prevents us from making exaggerated statements. It also makes our study more academic. For UGC NET JRF examination, this is very useful way to approach ancient political thought. Now let us briefly discuss Manusmriti, one of the most famous texts associated with the Dharmashastra. Its scholarly title is Mano Dharmashastra. It is traditionally associated with Manu. The Cambridge chronology places the Mano Dharmashastra around 2nd century CE. But we should remember that the composition and transmission of the text are complex questions. The text discuss a very wide range of subjects. These include dharma, social duties, social organization, kingship, judicial matter, punishment, and other area of normative life. But please remember one thing very clearly. Manusmriti is not the same thing as the entire Dharmashastra tradition. There were earlier Dharmasutras and later Smriti texts. There were also different textual tradition and interpretations. So if an examination question asks about Dharmashastra, do not automatically assume that every statement about Dharmashastra means Manusmriti alone. This distinction is extremely important. So before we finish, let us remember 10 points from today's lecture. Number 1. Dharma does not simply mean reason. Number 2, Dharma has a wider normative meaning involving duties, conduct, and order. Number 3, Dharmashastra means a textual tradition dealing with Dharma. Number 4, Dharmasutra and later Dharmashastra text belong to a related but historically developing tradition. Number 5, Apastamba, Gautama, Buddhayana, and Vasistha are important Dharmasutra traditions. Number 6, Manusmriti is also called the Mano Dharmashastra. Number 7, the Manusmriti is one important text, but it does not represent the entire Dharmashastra tradition. Number 8. Dharmashastra discussed social order as well as a political question. Number 9. Kingship is discussed in relation to duties, protection, justice, and order. Number 10. Always distinguish between what a text prescribes and what actually happened historically. In the next lecture, we will go deeper into the political side of Dharmashastra. We will study Rajadharma, the duties of the king, Danda, punishment, justice, and the relationship between dharma and political authority. That is where the political thought becomes much more interesting. See you in the next lecture. For more interesting videos like this for the preparation of UGC NET and JRF examination in the political science, please subscribe my channel. Thank you.